So, welcome everyone to the second in our Future Ready Accounting session presented by Boma and the Backroom. Today, we're covering the marketing role and whether to freelance, outsource, or offshore. Uh, as per last time, if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer them at the end. You can pop them into the Q&A box as we go. And before I hand over to our presenters, just to make sure that you can all see and hear me, maybe just pop into the chat just to confirm that you can. If you can't for any reason, maybe just try logging out and logging back in. So fantastic, Ian. I'll hand over to you, and I'll see you guys on the at the end.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Welcome,
Thanks,
everybody.
Charles.
Welcome, Scott. Good afternoon. And yes, today we're going to talk about a little bit of marketing and then a whole bunch about outsourcing. Before we do that, just Ian Christie, founder and CEO of Boma. You can see there my school photo, still proudly in the deck there, and joined by Scott.
Yeah, hi Ian, and thanks, Charles. Great to be here again. I remembered my hat this week, so I've got the good old backroom hat on. Actually, in the Philippines, so she's still morning here, Ian. 9 o'clock in the morning, but still but hot. Not as hot as I think it is where you are.
Yes, but toasty here. Um, I'm from Boma. We're a digital marketing platform designed only for accounting firms. And Scott, you want to say a
Yeah,
word or two about?
yeah. Well, just quickly, yeah, we're an offshoring company, and mainly accountants, but we do other things as well, like marketing. And we're most of our staff are based in the Philippines.
Fantastic. So what we're going to cover today is effectively just a precursor to some of the questions that you may or may not have on your mind about marketing for accounting firms and how that relates to the resource you're going to put behind that, and which is what Scott will cover in more detail. So what I'm going to take you through is a couple of things about what is different about marketing for accounting firms, what doesn't work, what does work, and also something about timelines and expectations as well, because it's quite a different and new practice for a lot of people. And so there's a time horizon conversation that we should have in that. Also, a little bit about authenticity, because in these days of all reality television and so many people having their own YouTube and social channels, there's an authenticity question that comes begging all the time. And so we've got some thoughts on that. Scott will be taking us through how to operate smartly. That's taking the sorts of things that I've been talking about and then relating those to an offshoring practice. And what we have got is this fantastic action checklist for you, which is a quick start guide to everything we've spoken about. And it's an amazing resource. So I want to thank the team for putting that together. That's well worth taking a look at, and that's obviously part of your attendance today. So one of the things that often I come across when talking to accountants is that we are an accounting firm. We're very different. We're not a retailer. We're not a product in the sense of like a shoe brand or a piece of clothing. And so, effectively, what is accounting and what is its role? Sorry, what is marketing? What is its role in accounting? And effectively, a good way to sort of sum that up is that most firms aren't actually short of clients. They're short of the right clients. And so the goal of marketing fundamentally is to actually replace some of those poor fit clients with best fit clients and not just about getting more clients. Because one of the things is, as automation speeds up and digitization and now AI starts to change the shape of an accounting practice in the sense of some of the more day-to-day tasks, then trying to find the right client profile that gives you the opportunity to get into more advisory type conversations with your client and start to actually charge on that basis makes a massive difference. So marketing can play a really, really important role there, is to actually start to position your practice so you can start to attract the type of client that will get you more into those advisory type conversations rather than just being in that purely compliance position with potentially clients that aren't going to grow your revenue. So from a marketing position, what doesn't work is effectively untargeted approaches. And I'm going to speak quite a bit about targeting, because targeting, that is understanding who your ideal client is and what about them you like, and what about them that you think they will find attractive to your practice. So, so untargeted approaches, like just anybody that needs some accounting, clearly is not a winner by any stretch of the imagination. And neither is, you're the cheapest around, because, you don't want to start attracting price sensitive, bad fit clients. Buy now posts, that say, hey, come and see me because I've got the special on, or I'm available today, rush in and make an appointment, or whatever it happens to be. Those sorts of things don't work. They are working less and less in retail, and they certainly don't work in professional services. But also another thing that it gets overlooked quite a bit is thinking too local, is being able to think outside of your immediate geographic area. Because just because someone isn't down the road and then is physically able to be contacted doesn't mean they can't be a client of yours. So I think that that just local is restricting you incredibly. So we talk about what does work, and you can see a recurring theme here. But the definition of your ideal client is really, really important. So so even though you need to understand what keeps them awake at night, you also need to understand what type of person are they? What have they gone through in order to create their business or investment vehicle or whatever it happens to be? And where are they situated? What's important to them? What are the things that they believe is important, and what are they looking for? And so, in a way, and it does sound a little old-fashioned, but it does work, and that's to write a pen portrait of what you believe is your ideal customer profile. Imagine if they were someone who was sitting across the desk from you, and you had to describe on one side of an A4 sheet of paper what they were, what their life was like. All of those things, though, they seem a little counterintuitive because they are so qualitative, but actually what they are is helping you understand or even picture in your mind who your ideal customer would be. So when you've got then your ideal customer, then you could look at your own practice and say, okay, where are the skills that I believe are different to the skills of the practice down the road. And maybe the answer is in your client base. Maybe the fact that you're got more people that are in hospitality or engineering or farming. And I know farming's a bit of an easy one because there are plenty of farming practices out there. But it still doesn't prevent you from standing for something to say, I believe that I know more about this particular industry and the nuances in that industry and some of the pressures in that industry because I have a bunch of clients who are affected by the same things. Therefore, you can start to become more of an expert about that. And as I say, the answer could be right in front of you by looking at your client list and putting them into buckets of different categories of industry. And I think what a lot of these companies want, and going back to your ideal client profile, is they want to focus on practical business help rather than just boring sort of regulatory updates. Those are important, but actually, as far as the inspiration and the connection that you can make between you as a practice and them as a potential client, it's practical things in their business that they can look at today that can make a difference. And if that comes from understanding who your ideal customer profile is, it comes from believing that you stand for something that is really important and that you have something to offer that's practical, then you're suddenly starting to build a picture of the sort of value that you can add. And another interesting data point or points is to look at what are some of your most asked client questions. Because not only to yourself, but maybe there's other partners in your practice, and it would be an interesting subject to chat around the water cooler or the coffee machine, is to say, is there any similarity in the types of things that we get asked? And and if so, if they are some similar things, that actually can, from a marketing point of view, become the genesis for some pieces of content. So here's something that's really keeping these people awake at night. So and if you look at it through the lens of defining your ideal client, standing for something, a set of skills that you have, focusing on giving practical advice and basing it in real conversations that are being had over a period of time, then you can start to create marketing content for your ideal client around those subjects. And it doesn't have to be a multimedia marketing campaign. It can start as just in a newsletter format, email that goes out to your client base. But as I said before, if you really want to grow, then think outside your local geography. Because I think there's really a situation now that people are not that concerned about geographical presence unless there's some unique identifier that means that you have to be in the one place. It's just the fact that you can broaden your horizons literally and figuratively, because if you've got a light engineering business in one part of a country, I'm sure that the same issues and pressures are affecting a light engineering firm in another part of the country. So something we're going to talk about is building trust through relevancy. So the trust that you can build is by those points I made above. You can build the trust because you're relevant. The reason you're relevant is because in the potential client's mind, you're speaking their language. You are, you understand what keeps them awake at night. You're pronounced yourself to be an expert or certainly someone who knows a lot about a specific industry or issue. And what you're telling them is practical. So effectively, you can use that as a basis to, as I said before, publish a newsletter. You can write the same newsletter as a blog on your social on your website. You can start doing a trimmed down version of that as a social post. And if you really want to, you can start to do things like webinars, like we're doing now. So all of this comes from understanding all of these points and starting to create a story based on relevance and knowledge. But on the flip side of that, it's actually only going to be a tiny percentage of that addressable audience is ready to buy right now. And so that's why this content journey is really about building trust and can take months at least to start building. You know, we always hear about, oh, this went viral or that went viral, and that's fine. Those are great vanity metrics. But fundamentally, what you want to do is to build trust. And trust is why you have the clients that you've got, and trust will be the reason that people will who are not your clients will get interested in you. And that trust comes from those things we spoke about before about understanding who you're talking to, knowing what you're an expert at, putting things out there that people find relevant and interesting. And if you do that on a regular basis, consistency and regularity are the key here. So again, it's the frequency is about I've got 10 talking points that I'm going to put together, and I'm going to publish those now once or twice a week for 5 or 10 weeks. And I'll do that every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. So effectively, what you're doing is you're starting this journey, and as we know, the steps to starting the journey are always the hardest. And the first piece of content is always the most difficult. But once you start doing that, you will find that the cadence becomes easier. And then if you get into a habit in your practice of discussing with partners or with your team, what are the sorts of things we find that people are starting to ask us about, or maybe just mention as an aside, but actually are probably very important to them. But it takes time. It's not a binary, marketing's not a binary thing. It's about building trust. The longer you do it, the more trust you'll build. And that's really important. Another thing that gets overlooked quite a bit is authenticity. And look, everybody's got access to a video camera now, and no one's a natural. So I think that getting over the fact that you don't feel like your broadcast quality presenter shouldn't be a barrier to doing things like shooting a short video of yourself or writing something down on a potential blog post. So the thing is, as though a lot of that authenticity on its own will only get you so far. Clearly, you have to be authentic with a strategy, and that strategy is going back to I'm going to give myself 6 months. I'm going to stand for this particular point of view in this particular industry. I'm going to really uh, aim what I'm doing from a content point of view to the pen portrait that I've drawn of my ideal customer. And the reason it's going to be relevant is because I really feel like I've got an understanding of who they are. And I've also got a deep domain knowledge understanding of these particular sectors or industries. So therefore, whatever I do, it's going to be relevant to them. Because if it's not relevant clearly, then you are, on one hand, you're going to be driving people away. But on the other hand, a lot of people might say that message is not for me. But for the people who it really matters to, they will say that message is for me. This person is talking about what's important to me. And that's what will really bring them forward. And the last point about that is about the compelling nature of what is required, because that's the flip side of the authenticity is that you have to actually be compelling in what you're saying. And I don't mean that's compelling in the sense of you need to be, again, camera ready and be able to talk as if you've been a broadcasting professional. It's about just the information that you are giving them means so much that it's so compelling and engaging that they really want to make sure that next week they either look out for your social post or they go to your blog and read what you have to say. And oftentimes people won't reach out directly. They will, again, back to that trust building, they'll spend time reading, considering what you're saying, making their own judgments as to whether that's something that resonates with them. And then you can start to hopefully get closer to them through your marketing actions. So this is all very well, but I can hear a lot of you saying, I'm sure, well, this is not a core competency in our business. And where can we get the resource to do this? And how can we do it on a really cost-effective basis? So this is a perfect segue for Scott to talk about what he does and can offer, because I think that this is a really great bookend to what I've been talking about in the how.
Thanks, Ian. Gee, I always learn heaps from you when you're going through them. You really you really do. And I look back and think when we had our accounting firm, what we did and what we should have done, and back then, and I think if we sort of took on even 20% of some of that stuff, I think even in the time we were kind of ahead of a game in some ways. We took on a marketing person. It was kind of before the days of outsourcing wasn't around then, but we actually took on a marketing person early in the days. But I think one of the key things um, that we did was number one, get the strategy right, and getting that strategy right really has to come from your partners. A bit of the gap stuff in terms of the 10 hats. You go through that exercise and work out who's in charge of it, who's in charge of marketing. And full disclosure, it wasn't me. It was the big fella Wayne actually who took over the marketing role in our accounting firm. And but yeah, we got on and did a lot of stuff that you're talking to Ian. But gee, I wish if I knew some of that now, it would have been a lot better. So number one, you've got to do your strategy, and that's local, that's with your partners, and you might bring in some people to help you out with that. Obviously, you might have some mentors or even some sort of agencies that you may bring in. But really, when you talk about outsourcing, the outsourcing side of it is the doers, and for lack of better words, the doers. It's the people set your strategy, as Ian said, set your calendars and what you're all going to do, and they're going to do your work for you. And quickly listing off, people ask, what can they do? Um, and and it's I always give them the same answer. They can do whatever you like. But especially in the Philippines, and look, I'm going to jump from marketing a little bit back to sort of the accounting. Like in the back room, we're about 80% accounting based staff we've got there, and 20% other. And out of those 20%, there's probably a good 10% of them that do some sort of marketing duties. So when you're talking about stuff like content creation, social media, email and CRM type stuff, drip campaigns and lead scoring, and analytics and reporting, all the reporting they can be doing for you, dashboards, etc., and using your CRM. And then you can get into things like event marketing, or even helping out with reminders and calendar integrations. And then you've got creative tasks like auto-generate, social media graphics. They can do all sorts of stuff around creative sides on different multiple platforms. But what I also want to talk about, when you do, when you even take it back a step, why are you doing this? One, what Ian just went through. Have you got the people to do with it to do this? Probably not. Who generally does it? You might have an office manager or a business manager and some admin staff. And again, having those people doing those tasks, is that the best use of them? Probably not. Probably not. When you can get good staff over in let's pick on the Philippines, obviously a wee bit biased, who have got experience in this and can learn it quickly. But also you're going to ask yourself, have I got the time? Have I got enough work for it? And so generally we look at roles that are, and I'll talk about this later, more of a marketing slash VA slash admin. And I'm a bit of a cricket nut, so it's a good all rounder, you could say. So they do a bit of everything. So they do those core tasks, but then you think if you've got that person and they can also jump in and do a bit of sales work for you, how about follow up some sales proposals? Even put them together, help with onboarding. Again, I talk about, I don't know of many accounting firms, and dare I say it, I don't think we're great at it either, do onboarding well, AML. And then you've got other things like company's office, zero bank, you can jump into that. And then you've got the pure VA type roles that this person can do. Sure, doing marketing, he might be the key role, but then you can throw them into other things. So then we sort of work out what is the best model for getting marketing done. I'll just note on this, we could have a poll coming up on offshoring and outsourcing. We're going to ask you if you've ever worked with outsourced or offshoring marketing support. So it'd be good to see the results on this end, to see how many people are actually offshoring. So look, tick the box on this, and just let you know, Ian and I can't. We're not allowed to do it. So as you talk about this, I'm going to go through sort of the best models for getting marketing done, and then we'll sort of talk about overall what's better. So freelance. Freelance. Well, first I'll talk about every firm hits the wall. You need marketing support, but you're not sure which path makes sense. Freelancer, agency, or offshore help. We've seen firms spend heaps, thousands on quick fixes that just don't scale. So it's more about clarity and also how, using AI and what kind of marketing you actually need. So freelancers, I kind of call them a bit independent hired guns. So they're great for quick tasks, occasional help, creative work, but often disconnected. Availability can be an issue, variable quality, less accountability, and no long continuity. I just interrupt there. We've got some results. You see that in?
Yeah,
Yeah, not a lot.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. There's a few. There's about 17% have actually doing it, and another sort of 20 odd percent, 17% are actually interested but not yet. So that's good. So there's a wee bit of interest in that. So that's great to hear. Yeah. So freelancers, look, good to use. Like any of these options is good. It's sort of it's just what really suits your firm and what works best for you and what bits you take out of it. So outsourcing. So you're talking external agencies, yeah, sort of managing your marketing strategy, campaigns or etc. And that's usually for a set fee. So they can deliver campaigns, but they won't really manage it internally. And well, if they do, you need a big deep pockets. Um, they may not understand your firm's culture. I admit in the day when we had our firm, we used a company, and after a while, they really did. They did get to know us really well, but it did take a while. And again, can be expensive, often can lack that industry knowledge. Now, offshoring, and I got here offshoring slash VA roles, and again, very biased. So on the other hand, this gives you someone embedded in your business. So they learn the systems, they get to know your firm, they get to know your people, they get to know the AI tools that you're using, and get to know Boma if you're using Boma. So they become very efficient and really do become part of the team. And and I'll just talk about teams. And when I talk about, and I think most of you guys are accountants, I sort of bang on a bit about offshoring, about getting a team together and getting that critical mass. And that part of that team can be your admin, your VA, and your marketing people as well. So I think that's very important. And once you get that critical mass, that team, the scaling can be a lot easier. So that it's very effective. Hey, the bad sides, I'm always upfront. You're going to get they're not going to hit the ground running. They're still going to take a while. They're going to have to learn your systems. Um, they could leave. Again, I say if we do our job right, you do your job right, you're going to keep these people for a good time. And they will take sick days. They will take annual leave. So they'll still do that sort of stuff. And you'll still get some issues that you would have with your local staff, but there's certainly an ROI there. So we're not talking about outsourcing cheaply. We're talking about building building your extended team, and you really want the right person on the right seats. Wayne and I always used to talk about having the right people on the bus. So how do we decide the right blend? Some tasks may be local, like for instance, obviously strategy. In that case, you bring in your agencies, but more and more is automated. AI through CRMs, and look, I find that exciting. I find it especially exciting in the accounting industry. Like we're even going there ourselves. We've got our I think I talked about that last webinar where we've got our own co-pilot and we've got some other cool things sort of happening. But I think you've got to really take that on board about the automation side of it and take on like we here at the back room, we automate a lot of our marketing we run HubSpot and sequences and everything else going through that. You probably don't need into your accounting firm need to go to that depth, but if it's there, and I know with some of the CRMs and some of the software out there that they really are great. But we're getting down to the right blend. I think we've got firms where they are offshoring the offshore market and VA will create amazing marketing collateral. They'll send social media posts. They'll run your CRM, extract analysis reports. They'll use AI to draft captions, to draft them. not finalize them, of course. They'll use Boma to schedule posts and then syncs weekly with their partners to review. So that blend, the blend of smart tech, the right people, and I bang on about this one as well, clear process drives real consistency. I talk on again on just quickly the four pillars of offshoring. One of them is cloud based. The next one is processes, and systems. The other one is mindset and just communication. Then we also you're going to have. Then we want to talk about is that AI. It isn't replacing your marketing team. It's upgrading your team. You're still going to have the humans to run the machines. Before, I guess just finally, it's more a bit of a warning, and again, relatively biased, you could say. A lot of firms, a lot of people may look at hiring direct overseas, and look, in a lot of cases that does work, and marketing and VA roles, they can be the roles that sort of may fit under that. So I'll just sort of go through some of the things you need to watch out about. But look, the positive of that, it's going to be cheaper. It's certainly gonna be cheaper. But the things you've got really got to look about is the security. Whose hardware are these people using when they're overseas? What software are they running on it? And then in the accounting field, you've got confidential information and all that sort of stuff. So you just got to be really careful on that side of it. These people that are, do you know what they're actually doing? Are they potentially moonlighting? Most times they would be doing, if they're a full contractor, they'll be doing other work as well. So, are they focused on what you're doing? There's obviously no HR management around it for you. There's a bit more admin. Are you in the business of paying contractors, or are you in the business of accounting? There's a cultural activities and engagement type work that you won't be doing, that you'll have to do yourself. And the one that's just popped up this recently is a potential, well, there was a legal case in Australia where a Philippine lady, I think, sort of sued a law firm in Australia around. She obviously got dismissed, and she argued that she was an employee, and so she got a large redundant. She won the case and got a large redundancy payout. The other thing is ongoing training, so that will be 100% up to you. And one of my bugbears is, do you know if these contractors are paying their own tax? And morally, we don't like this at the backroom, and unfortunately, it's a weird thing in the Philippines. Essentially, I'm talking about the Philippines here. They should be paying tax. It's just not really policed, and I can tell you, the Philippines does need this money. And when you see some of the sites that I see now and again, yeah. So look again. I apologise for being a wee bit biased on that, and give it, by all means. I want people to offshore by all means, but just be careful around the direct offshoring. Um, yeah. So that's pretty much me. I would probably hand you over to Charles, is it?
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, thanks, Scott, and thanks, Ian. I think some really some good insights and advice to think about as you roll into the Christmas period and New Year's, looking ahead to 2026 and how you might want to position the resources within your firm in terms of, your goals in the year ahead. Um, but look, this isn't the end of this future ready firm. After the Christmas and New Year's break, we will be following up with the third session, and that's in late January on the 27th, and we'll be discussing the growth equation, balancing talent, tools, and time. More immediately, we'll be sending out the recording of this session tomorrow. along with the value add download. And this week it's on freelancing, outsourcing, and offshoring. And it's basically it's your guide to finding the right fit for your marketing and admin support. So basically, you can sort of go through and look at the, I suppose, the pros and cons, upsides, downsides of the different elements in there. Now, just before we finish, if anyone does have a question, I haven't seen any come through, but now's the time to ask. And just while I give you an opportunity to do that, just to remind you that there is the opportunity for a free The Backroom and Boma strategy call. So this is basically a no obligation chat. We'll sit down with you virtually and then talk through your firm's specific situation and how the Boma platform can help from a technology perspective in terms of marketing, and equally how the backroom can help from an offshoring perspective in terms of resourcing. Not only the marketing side of things, but you may have additional uh, parts that you'd like to resource in your firm. Um, so I don't see any questions. Just before we wrap up, just to remind you that there is a quick exit survey just as we leave. If you just take 10, 15 seconds just to complete that, that'd be great. Help us understand how you're finding the value in this. And then just before I finish up, Scott, I suppose from an offshore perspective, anything that maybe you wanted to cover but you didn't have a chance to cover that would be useful for people to consider as they go into the holiday break?
Couple, I've got one nice wee saying that I was probably meant to say is that consistency beats creativity. And I'm sure Ian will agree with that. And the other thing is AI can help you move faster, but it's your people that make it meaningful.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And look, while Boma has the AI built in to the platform, all the content
Mm,
on our side is all created by humans.
mm.
They're all experts in their field. So yeah, definitely it can be a great enabler, but I think there is nothing beats consistency, whether it's on, in the gym for getting stronger or in terms of marketing. As Ian said earlier, if you want to build that trust, it's not just one time that you reach out to someone. It's that sort of consistency, isn't it, Ian?
Yep. Yep. And also, and I guess my leaving thought is just start. Just just do the first thing and make it a habit. And over time, you'll start to see the benefits. And I think it's a great strategic tool for shaping your business moving into the future.
Fantastic. Well, look, everyone, if we don't chat before then, have a fantastic holiday period, and we'll see you all in 2026. Bye for now.